Now we're going to get some expert analysis on Seoul's decision to withdraw from that intelligence sharing pact with Tokyo. As a result of the decision, the pact will now officially come to an end in November. I'm glad to say we have Professor Kim Hyun-wook from the Seoul-based Korea National Diplomatic Academy on the line for his thoughts. Now, Professor Kim, we've had slightly over 12 hours to digest this announcement. Do you think it was a reasonable response to Japan's trade pressure on Seoul or an ill-advised mistake by the Moon Jae-in government?
Well, from the President Moon Jae-in's perspective, it was due to Japan's that this kind of conflict between Japan and Korea has escalated so far. It was the historical issue first, and then Japanese response was, economic and trade issues, and now it's turned for Korea to, retort it back in security issues. So this is his logic, but I would say that this is no good. I mean, now what is more important is security relationship and security of South Korea and economic relationship between Japan and Korea and U.S. and Japan and Korea, not domestic politics. But what is important thing now is that, Prime Minister Abe and President Moon Jae-in, their driving force for the conflict of Japan and Korea is domestic politics, not foreign policies. I think that's the problem.
Right, and Professor, there's no doubt really that this decision is going to severely affect South Korea's national security. Some analysts are calling it highly irresponsible, even malpractice. What does Seoul forfeit by leaving Jisomiya, and which country loses out most, or is it just a lose-lose situation for both South Korea and Japan?
I think this is a lose-lose situation for South Korea, Japan, and the United States. U.S. wanted to use the U.S.-Japan-Korea trilateralism as a pillar of its Asia policies, and it is still a pillar because it is their locations, Japan and Korea's location, is very strategically important to pressure China. South Korea and Japan, they were sharing their information about North Korea issues and maybe China issues, but of course still they have trilateral intelligence sharing amongst the U.S. and Japan and Korea. So even though Jisomiya is gone, they still can share the information via the United States. But as far as some emergent situation is about, for example, missiles coming in and there is some kind of emergence intelligence sharing between Japan and Korea about the missile defense system, for example, the time that they need for direct intelligence sharing should be shortened rather than, via the United States. So that kind of emergent situation would be something that I'm worrying about. But still, I think if they are willing to continue their trilateralism and the bilateral alliances, I think, the big picture would be still stay put.
Just quickly, before we move on to our next question then, if South Korea now has to go through this third party to get information from Japan, before it used to be real time, what kind of time are we looking at now?
What do you mean time?
In terms of seconds or minutes or an hour or something?
Okay. As I have said, some emergent situation is something that is related to the bilateral information sharing between Japan and Korea. If this is gone, we have TISA, which is a trilateral intelligence sharing agreement amongst the U.S. and Japan and Korea. So, for example, let's assume that North Korea shoots some missiles, and there should be some missile defense capabilities to be operated, for example, by Japan or by Korea and by the United States. So if Japan needs to get ready for the missile defense system vis-a-vis North Korean missiles, and they have to get a lot of information from South Korea. And that is such a short amount of time operations and intelligence sharing. So if they try to get the information of South Korea throughout the United States, the time space would be too much, and they would not be might not be ready for that kind of emergency situations.
Okay, so that really gives us an idea of just how serious this decision was. Now, this spat escalated quickly, as you touched upon before, from court rulings on historical issues, wartime forced labor, then to trade, and now it's security. How do you see this playing out, especially given the complete lack of trust between Seoul and Tokyo? Is there any way back from this, or is it going to continue to spiral out of control?
I think from the perspective of domestic politics, the Japan and Korea conflict is a win-win situation for Japanese and Korean government. That's irony, because Prime Minister Abe, based upon the conservative public opinion supporting his government, is using that public opinion, wants to go for the revision of constitution. So it needs a conflict with South Korea. South Korean government too. I mean, President Moon Jae-in, by his willingness to be determined to Japan and fight with Japan is getting a lot of support from the public opinion. So domestic politics is there. I don't think the conflict will be finished. So I think what we need to think about is a very strong arbitration by the United States, or if conflicts escalate and they lose their support from the public opinion, I think there will be the time that they would be willing to come and talk and come back to dialogue.
Okay, Professor Kim, thank you very much for making time in your busy schedule to answer our questions this morning. We'll just have to see how this plays out, but like you say, for now, it isn't looking very good at all. Thank you.
Thank you.